You know what time it is. It's Thursday, 5 o'clock. This is 88.3 The Dog. Last semester we were Fridays. This semester we're Thursdays. So I guess that means what? We're stepping up in the world. It is C4 Sports, if you didn't know. Even though tonight it's only, I guess, C2 Sports. It's just me and your boy Primetime, Mr. Darius Hawkins himself in the studio here at Salee 326. My name is Matt Langman, if you did not know. I'm the host of C4 Sports, and you can feel free to follow me on Twitter at LManMatt93. That is at LManMatt93. Tweet at either me or Darius, I guess, during the show. And we will answer any of your sports questions that you do tweet at us. Just know that we'll wait till we get to that segment. So say we're talking basketball and you tweet football. We'll answer it once we get to football or at the end of the show. I promise you we will get to all your questions. So thank you, everybody who tweets us your questions. We had a great turnout last semester for questions on Twitter. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners, Mr. Darius Hawkins.
That's right. You already know, as you said, Matt, Primetime, Darius Hawkins in the place to be. Y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram now. We have a smartphone this semester.
I'm very proud of that.
At _Hawk_13. Anything you want to say, y'all go ahead. Like I said, find me on Twitter. Y'all want to follow on Instagram. We have a nice, different types of photos. Yesterday we had a team selfie, so we're upgrading, in the world right now. C4 Sports.
Yeah, that was a solid intramural win yesterday at the Rec Center. What is it? Team Ballers defeated the track team by, I believe, 10 points. I had a nice 4-point play. Mr. Darius Hawkins had a nice little scoop shot and one up and under layup, so those were kind of the highlights of that game. But I don't think that's what our listeners want to hear. We're going to go ahead and get the first show of the semester started off the right way, despite there just being two of us. We'll talk a little Western Illinois basketball. First, we'll get to the men's team. The Fighting Leathernecks comeback effort fell short Sunday afternoon as North Dakota State defeated Western Illinois 64-62 inside Western Hall. We all feel bad, and we all feel disappointed, said head coach Billy Wright. We feel like we could have won this game tonight. Obviously, we're not into moral victories, but at the same time, I feel like my team is definitely improving. We didn't play our best, but we still had an opportunity to win. We did some good things out there. We just didn't do enough to win. After trailing by 11 points early in the second half, Western took its first lead of the game with only 2:54 remaining in regulation thanks to a 7-0 run. North Dakota State quickly grabbed the advantage back and held onto it for the remainder of the contest. WIU had two possessions in the final minute of action to tie the game or take the lead, but they were unable to capitalize. North Dakota State remains second place in the Summit League after the win and improves to 15-7 overall on the year and 7-2 in league play. Western falls to 8-12 overall and 3-6 in Summit League play. So not quite the season that I know first-year head coach Billy Wright was hoping for after taking over for Jim Molinari, who left for Nebraska at the end of last season. He's got a pretty talented but not very deep roster at his disposal. Before we talk about this last game, let's just kind of talk about how the season has gone, because the last time we were in here, we were talking men's basketball. The season was still very fresh, very young. I think maybe 3 games have been played against not very quality competition. Now we're well into league play as it is February on the calendar. The season's almost over for Western Illinois. It doesn't look like they're going to make any postseason berths, at least on the men's side. What have you seen this season? Because I know you've worked a couple men's games for the broadcasting department, Darius. What have you seen from this team?
One thing I've seen is basically what we've even said last year when Coach Molinari was coaching, is that there's not really a dominant inside presence. You look at Garrett Covington, who's doing, basically carrying the load like he did last year. J.C. Fuller has been a nice surprise. He started some games recently, including a nice performance against IUPUI when he had 20 points. So, those two have been nice. Jabari Sandiford has still been consistent, running the show at the point guard. But it's not really any dominant big man. And also, this team has struggled with injuries this year. We see Tate Stensgaard this year might be out for the year now with a wrist injury. Mike Bakuzak got hurt earlier this year. Remy Roberts was hurt earlier this year. So you've seen a few injuries to a few key rotation players. And with that, along with not a real dominant inside presence, it's kind of hard for a young team to get wins, especially when they start conference competition.
Yeah, this team has really kind of struggled out the gate, especially in conference. They just look kind of overmatched in conference play. They didn't do terribly out of conference. They were kind of an average team. They were in basically all the games that they played, even some of their losses, just a couple bad losses to higher quality programs like Akron or Cleveland State. But recently, it's been a string of bad luck for Western Illinois, especially when it comes to Summit League play. They had a loss to South Dakota State, Oral Roberts, Denver, North Dakota State, South Dakota, before finally breaking that back on the 30th of January with a 63-59 win. And then they followed that up with this last loss, which is only a 2-point loss to North Dakota State, a team they probably could have beaten, probably should have beaten inside Western Hall. It was kind of a disappointed feeling coming out of that one as I was talking to some of the people who had worked that game. Really kind of, I'd say the one kind of bright spot from what I've heard so far has been Garrett Covington for the team this year. He did have that game-winning shot earlier in the semester inside Western Hall, which was pretty cool. I know a lot of people were excited about that. What is your opinion so far on Garrett's second season here in Macomb?
Well, I feel like he's definitely carrying the load. As I said earlier, I've heard some people say that he's going to make the NBA. I tell them to calm down on that. They're overexcited because he is the best player on the team. Which, I mean, give credit to him for being able to carry the load and he's still a young player.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like he's been here for a while, but he's only a sophomore, so he's still been able to carry the load. I think that he just needs some help around him. Like I said, J.C. Fuller has been a nice surprise this year, a transfer student. I would like to see Jabari shoot a little bit more, especially in the mid-range shot. I think if he can watch a lot of what John Wall does, being able to hit in the pick and roll, hit mid-range pull-up jumpers, I think that will help them a lot. But I'm really trying to see where the leadership is coming from for this team. I think Tate Stensgaard, just from watching, might be one of the leaders just because he's an older player. But I don't really know, besides Coach Wright, exactly where the leadership is coming from. And I'm sure Coach Wright is wondering the same thing. It's also a young experience for him, his first year coaching. So he's really trying to figure out his system, figure out the type of guys he wants to play. So everybody's discovering, something new right now during the middle of the year. So they're in a struggle, but, maybe a few years from now, we'll be able to see the benefits from it.
Yeah, we'll see, because like you said, Covington as well as Sandifer, very young players, both only sophomores. Covington being the best player. Sandifer is up there as well. He's probably top 3 or 4 player, though I'm a little, I'd say, disappointed in his play this year. Kind of expected a little bit more growth from Jabari, but he is still a very young player with a lot of talent. He's a fellow Naperville kid, fellow Dirty 630, so that's why I got to give him a little bit of a shout-out, and I'm definitely pulling for Jabari for the rest of this season and for the rest of his time here at Western. But like you said, Darius, it has been Garrett Covington really carrying the team, especially in the scoring department. This team has struggled to score points. We thought it was going to be different when they changed from Jim Molinari to Billy Wright at the head coaching spot. When Molinari, a lot of students here at Western weren't a huge fan of him, despite the fact that they won. It was some pretty boring basketball. It was all defense with Coach Molinari, and Billy Wright promised to bring a more up-tempo style, which we've seen this season, but it hasn't produced many wins quite yet. Granted, these are not his players in his system, so you got to give him time. But Covington's averaging about 15 points per game. The second highest scorer is J.C. Fuller at about 10. Behind him is Sandifer at 9. And then it really drops off after that as it's Jamie Badish with about 6 points per game. So this team has really, really struggled to find scoring from anybody not named Garrett Covington.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like I said, with Garrett needing help, Jamie Badish, by the way, is a guy who might be the best pure shooter on the team. So maybe they should be able to try and find a way, to get him involved a little bit more with getting some minutes. And also, with them not being able to have a big dominant presence, I think it's important for them to try and utilize the pick and roll early, not only to get the big guys buckets early on, but to also give some space to the perimeter shooters. That would just open up the offense for everybody.
Yeah, I know there are a couple real good shooters on the team. Like you said, Badish is a fantastic shooter. Tate Stensgaard is not afraid to step outside and hit some shots. He can kind of play that stretch 4 position. Of course, Mike McClusack is the other kind of pure shooter on the team. But a lot of these guys can hit. Covington is it reminds me his shooting kind of like a Carmelo Anthony. He's not afraid to just pull straight from the dribble, and he's got that quick release. Sandifer, his shot I think could use a little bit of work. Yeah. But this is a team that can hit from the outside. Are you surprised that their 3-point shooting has struggled the way it has this year?
Not necessarily, because the quality of the looks that they get are not necessarily good. So that's why I said that they need to use the pick and roll a little bit more, because they, as you said with Garrett Covington, he hits a lot of tough shots. A lot of his shots are not necessarily good-looking shots, which is a skill set in itself to be able to hit those, but it's not necessarily a good thing. J.C. Fuller in the game versus IUPUI, he hit a lot of tough shots. He was having defenders crash into him and everything. He was just able to knock them down. As you said, Jabari shot, I keep telling people he shoots a lot to me like Eric Snow. It's like more of a hit shot. The ball is over his head. And his shot could see a better release, but, I mean, they don't get a lot of open shots. Okay. So that's probably why their percentage isn't that high.
Well, that was kind of interesting to hear that Eric Snow name drop as a LeBron fan. I remember that name from a while ago, part of the Cleveland LeBron James is, specifically that 2007 team that he pretty much drugged to the finals that year. So that's kind of a funny little connection. What are your final thoughts, though, if you want to leave our listeners with anything, as we're about to head into kind of the home stretch here for the basketball season, at least here in Macomb?
Well, I'm not going to give any false positives, like all of a sudden, they're just going to make a run and do great in the conference tournament. I would say for anybody who's a fan of the team, the best thing you could probably do is just stay patient. It's a young team. It's a young coaching staff. So hopefully, as Coach Wright brings in more of his own recruits, and as these players get more used to playing under his system, hopefully things will be able, to improve in the future.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the right outlook to take on the men's team, as they're a team that's looking ahead to the future. We'll go ahead and switch it to the women's team, which is a little bit of my specialty because I am one of the TV announcers for this women's team. And it's kind of the exact opposite for WIU's women's basketball, as they are right now in second place in the Summit League, especially coming off their big win over Fort Wayne, which was kind of one of the games that really went down to the wire inside Western Hall. It was a lot of fun to watch and call that one. Ashley Luke, who has been dominant all season, if she does not win Summit League Player of the Year, I think you might need to call the cops for highway robbery, honestly, because she has been the most dominant and overall best player in the Summit League. She hit a pair of free throws with 2.2 seconds remaining to help earn the Leathernecks a win against Fort Wayne, as well as earn her a nickname from yours truly. I now call her Vanilla Ice, because she went 14 of 14 from the free throw line. So, she's got that ice in her veins. So, of course, naturally, that means Vanilla Ice, which she enjoyed when I told her that in the post-game press conference. The Leathernecks improved to 14-8 overall, 6-3 in the Summit League, which is once again good enough for second place. The Mastodons were swept now by the Leathernecks on the season. They fall to 8-14, 2-7, which is real tough for them. It's one of their worst in program history. Luke finished with another double-double, 26 points, 10 rebounds. Junior Sophie Reichelt, who's been playing fantastic the past couple games, had 12 points and 11 rebounds. They each recorded double-doubles for Western, and in the process, they closed out a 4-game homestand with 3 consecutive victories, which Coach J.D. Gravina was very happy with. A big part of that has been the play of Sophie Reichelt, as she's just been a rebounding machine and a scoring machine. We kind of call her the fire extinguisher, as one of the jokes for us over the broadcast was the game where she dropped 24, I believe, which was against South Dakota State, I want to say. Is the only way to stop her recently has been if the opposing team has a fire extinguisher, because she's been red hot, especially from beyond the arc, and her rebounding has been a huge contribution to the team. And this Western Illinois team, at least on the women's side, is now set to play, I believe, 4 straight road games, if I'm not mistaken, before coming back. They have 2 more home games, so I have to call 2 more games inside Western Hall before the Summit League tournament starts. And this is a team that is a serious threat for the Summit League title, not only in the regular season, but for the tournament as well. They are really playing well under Coach Gravina. They have a deep bench, which is different from what we've seen over past years. Coach Gravina has been quick to point that out in a lot of his press conferences. I don't know how much you've seen. I know you've worked a couple women's games. I've seen you there a few times. From what you have seen, what is your opinion on the season that this women's team has had? Because it is kind of the exact opposite of the men in a way.
Yeah, first of all, it's just nice to be able to see a team that's actually having a winning record on campus. That's nice. I was at the Fort Wayne game, and I definitely did notice Ashley Luke going 100% from the free throw line. And one thing that I enjoy watching, I mean, it's a different type of atmosphere watching women's basketball for 2 reasons. One, because I play basketball for one. Second of all, just the pace compared to the men's game. Sometimes they can honestly put you to sleep. But, I mean, one thing that I do like seeing is that Ashley Luke always knows when it's time to turn up her game one-on-one with matchups. She has a spin move that I've not seen anybody be able to stop.
Yep.
A spin move in the post. So I think that's definitely – you always need that one player that you can give the ball to that can get you a guaranteed bucket.
Yep.
And I think that's going to work well for them going into the Summer League tournament, and that's why that record is, as well so far.
Yeah, what really helps too, like you said, Ashley Luke is obviously the main piece of this team. Best player in the Summit League, one of the very best players in the country. There's no mistake about that. But what really helps with her is when teams have no inside presence. There's pretty much nobody, at least in the Summit League, that can guard her one-on-one. So you're going to have to double-team her, especially if she gets the ball in the post. Because like you said, Darius, her arsenal of post moves is just unparalleled. It's unmatched how she can score at the basket. Even if she doesn't get around you, she can finish some pretty crazy layups right there at the basket. Gets a lot of and ones. She got to the free throw line 14 times in the last game, hit all of them. And so teams are going to have to double, sometimes even triple team her. We've seen this season inside Western Hall. And when that happens, that opens up scoring opportunities for her teammates, and we've seen some real good jump shooting from the Leathernecks this season. Whether it's the only senior on the team, my personal favorite player, I don't know if I should say that, but Tori Neiman has been kind of the unsung hero of the team. She does everything well. We kind of called her the Swiss Army knife because she's been a jack of all trades this year. She can knock down those kind of baseline corner jump shots is what she likes to shoot from. Michelle Farrow, the team's leading three-point shooter, has been pretty red hot as well from beyond the arc this year. She's had a couple games where she's knocked down 4 or 5 threes in a row. Obviously, Sophie Reichelt, we talked about her. Michelle Maher's shot has struggled a little bit this season. She's been more of that kind of Steve Nash assist man role, Rajon Rondo, think of it like that. But she has had a couple games now where she's starting to look better from beyond the three-point line. And Liz Skatowski's had a couple big threes as well, had a couple nice games as she's been inserted into the starting lineup as the opposite guard to Maher. And it's just the team's clicking now on all cylinders, and I think it starts with that inside-out game. Whether you just got to get the ball to Ashley Luke. That's kind of when things start going bad for Western Illinois. It's when Ashley Luke doesn't touch the ball enough, when she's just out there in the post and not getting the ball. She's only effective if she has the ball in her hands, and that's what you got to do. Just give her the ball early in the possession and see what happens. See if she can get to the basket and score, and if she can't, she's going to draw a double, if not a triple team. So then she has the passing ability. It reminds me of Pau Gasol in a way, how he's got that great post-passing ability where she's going to find her open teammates, and she's extremely unselfish. She's going to kick the ball out, and they're going to have good looks. All they have to do is knock them down.
Yeah, that's one thing that, it helps that you have a great post player because, as you said, not only is scoring a plus, but being able to have a vision is something that not all post players have. So that definitely is a gift. And Western, the women's basketball team definitely does a great job of having shooters on the roster, a boatload of shooters coming. They not only start but come off the bench. So that's one thing that you really see a lot more so compared from the women's game to the men's game. Western women get a lot more open three-point shots, and they knock them down a lot. And, I mean, you don't even have to go to too many games to see that. Just look at how many T-shirts they throw out in the crowd with how many threes the women hit compared to the men. So they definitely are a lot better at ball movement, and that's a good thing to see because team ball basically conquers any type of defense that you can face.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There are a lot of T-shirts thrown in Western Hall when the women do play. Just speaking about some of their leaders, you look at Michelle Farrow, one of the best three-point shooters in the conference, shooting about 43% from beyond the arc. Tori Neiman doesn't take too many, but she's at about 36%. Excuse me. Liz Skatowski is also at 43 from three-point range. So these are all very effective shooters. The only problem with that, though, is Coach Gravina has said in the press conference a few times after some losses that the team's intensity can drop off when they're not making shots. Because basketball is obviously a game of runs, and there's been times inside Western Hall where the shots just don't fall for the girls. They've had open looks, especially earlier in the season, and the open looks just, they couldn't get them to go. And the intensity, especially on defense, has fallen off because of that. And that's something he's really tried to, I think, instill in the team, is that they can't just rely on shot making. It starts with defense and it ends with defense. And this is a very good defensive team, don't get me wrong, but there have been a few times where he felt like they kind of live and die by the three-pointer, which I know is not kind of the way you want to play. So I don't know if you've seen that at all or what your thoughts are on that in respect to when the three-point shot isn't falling.
Yeah, I've seen that a little bit from them. I haven't been, of course, to as many games as you have, so I've been to more basically last season, so I saw a little bit more last year. But I definitely understand that's a characteristic of basically any basketball team. A team that definitely, if you like shooting jumpers, if you don't hit them, it's kind of like, okay, what do we do now? Because in the mindset of a player, it's like if we miss too many, we want to shoot so we can gain a rhythm, but you don't want to shoot yourselves out the game either. So it's it's kind of a 50-50 thing. So I mean, it's interesting. So far, they seem to have balanced it out pretty well this year. Hopefully, they continue to, because you don't want to get deep into the summer league tournament and then all of a sudden you have an off shooting night and then you're like confused on what to do next.
My only problem too with the team when it comes to the 3-point shot is I feel like, especially when they get hot sometimes, they just fall in love with the 3-point shot, and that's all they're kind of looking for. There have been times on the air we've kind of said the team is just kind of swinging the ball around the perimeter outside now. And that's not kind of the way they play. They get away from Ashley Luke. They get away from those good looks inside. Tori Neiman is fantastic at cutting without the ball and getting easy layups. So once those 3-point shots stop falling, you stop scoring, honestly, if that's all you're going to be looking for, if that's all you're going to take. But on the defensive side, I've been real impressed with the team this year. Their rotation is fantastic. I'd say the best we've seen in the games that we've done is the way they rotate and help each other out. And the girls are very quick to give each other credit. Nobody ever takes any individual credit. We've asked them multiple times in the post-game press conferences how'd you shut down this team's star player? They always seem to shut down the other team's star player, even in losses. How'd you do that? How'd you run them off the three-point line if they're a good three-point shooting team? It always goes back to trusting your teammates and trusting our defensive rotation. It's been something that's excellent this season for the Leathernecks.
Yeah, that's definitely a very important thing, having trust on defense. Because as I've seen with Western play, they mix it up. Sometimes they might press full court. Sometimes they might stay back and play a zone or play man. And one thing on defense that you're taught at an early age is that it's all about not only about you, but it's about the person next to you. Because if you slip up, you have to count on that person to be there. And they've been very accountable with that this year, and that's definitely a great thing to see because defense, more so than three-point shooting or anything else, is really the key to winning. You can have bad shooting nights, but if your defense is on point, you're still able to pull out victories.
Yeah, that's a great point, Darius. We've seen that a lot from Western Illinois this season. They've really made the other teams kind of struggle, especially shooting. It's hard to shoot the three-point ball in Western Illinois because these girls are very good at running the opposing shooters off the three-point line. And I think the last point before we head into our first break and finish up this Western basketball talk has been the deep bench. Coach Gravina, especially early in the season, told us this is something new. He's never really had a deep bench before. This time they have a 8-9 player rotation. And kind of the big two are his sophomore Mallory Boyle and true freshman Emily Clemens that come off the bench for Western Illinois. These girls really kind of provide a spark. Clemens, you would never think she's a true freshman if you watch her play with her ball handling ability. Really, the only other true ball handler on the team is Michelle Maher, who is the starting point guard. So Clemens normally comes in relief duty for Maher, and they don't miss a beat. She's able to finish among much taller girls. She's pretty short, only something like 5'5" or 5'4", I believe. But you would not think she's a freshman. She's normally cool, calm, and collected with the basketball. From time to time, she'll make freshman mistakes, but overall, Coach Gravina has been very impressed with her play. And Mallory Boyle plays a lot of minutes. She's really a defensive stopper. She doesn't have too much offensive ability yet. I think she has yet to make a three-point shot on the season, but it's definitely there. She's definitely got a lot of potential, and she's one of the best defensive players on the team already, only as a sophomore. So this is a team that has a lot of potential going forward. Really, they're only going to lose one player next year, and that's senior Tori Neiman, who's kind of the unspoken leader of the team. They have a lot of leaders on this team, but I'd say the two that they really look up to the most is Ashley Luke and Tori Neiman, kind of the two best players. So only losing Neiman, which is going to be a big loss, as she's kind of, I'd say, other than Luke, the most important piece on the team. And she brings so much to the table. So if you look to these young players who are already having big roles, that's got to be a very good thing for Coach Gravina and the rest of this team.
Absolutely. That's why we said earlier, in comparison to the men, if you're a fan of the men's team, you're looking forward to the future and hopefully that being bright. Just look at the blueprint that the women are laying down. You have a lot of good players right now, and you have young players who may not play a lot of minutes. They may play spotty minutes, but they all make an impact. And they're getting a chance right now to play with a team that is winning. And then what that does is it helps them understand the culture of winning, and they can pass that on to future freshmen. And it's just a cycle that continues.
Yeah, I think there's not enough good things you can say either about head coach Gravina. He's done a great job with this women's team. And so it's good to see them winning. Hopefully they will continue this strong play, possibly challenge for a Summit League title. Like I said, they're in second place right now. And hopefully have a deep run into the Summit League tournament. There's only 2 more times we're going to see them here in Western Hall. So if you are a fan of Western basketball, be sure to support the women as well as the men. But that's going to take us into our first break. On the other side, it's still just 2 of us here at C4 Sports. Darius and I will be talking some NFL, so that's basically Super Bowl 49 recap, and it was one to remember. And we'll be right back at C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog.
To you by the Ad Council.
Back to C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog. It's C2 today, as it is me, Matt Langman. Follow me on Twitter at LmanMatt93. And I'm here with my boy, Darius Hawkins, over there. And it's just us two in the studio, but it's all right. I think we got it. We're going to do a little bit of Super Bowl talk now. If you kind of live under a rock and didn't know, the New England Patriots were able to defeat the Seattle Seahawks, much to my enjoyment. Seeing as I'm not a hater of many things, one of the few things I do hate is the Seattle Seahawks. So I was very, very happy to see them choke. Oh, and the way they did, it made me so happy. I think if there's one thing that brings me joy that's not winning, because normally it's the stuff in sports that brings me joy is my team winning. I think the number one thing, if I am going to be a hater, Richard Sherman's face when they threw that pick. Nothing negative could make me more happy than that image. It was tears of joy coming out of my face to see that. I know you're not too happy about that over there, but for me, it was pure ecstasy to see his face. At 24. What was it? 24. To see that happen. Oh, I love it so much to see him finally eat his words. I was very happy. So we'll go ahead and give a quick recap over there. The New England Patriots appear headed to another tough loss in the Super Bowl, and it seemed that way on more than one occasion. The first was when they trailed by 10 points in the fourth quarter, but they had already overcome bigger deficits this postseason, and a well-experienced quarterback led them to the lead. The game didn't end there. After an amazing catch, the Seattle Seahawks had the ball on the Patriots' 1-yard line and looked as if they were going to take the game in the very final seconds. Malcolm Butler had other ideas, though. Now, nobody knew who he was before the game. I sure didn't. But now everybody knows that name, Malcolm Butler. He made a game-saving interception on Russell Wilson's quick throw at the goal line. The Patriots won their fourth Super Bowl by edging the Seahawks 28-24, and one of the most dramatic finishes in the history of the event. I was rooting for the Patriots, obviously. I know you were rooting for the Seahawks. What's your reaction and opinion to the end of this one?
I'm still disappointed. I don't understand to this day. It's been 4 days after the game. I still don't understand why Pete Carroll thought it was okay to run on 2nd and 1. You have another timeout with you, and you have Marshawn Lynch, who had not lost any running yards that game, and he does not have a fumbling problem. And every time he falls forward. So, I mean, at worst, you don't get it, and you get 3rd and 1, and you get to run the play again. I don't understand why they did that. And honestly, I thought about it today. It reminded me of something that I used to do playing Madden when I was like a little kid. Like when you don't really understand, what type of plays to call, and you run like a slants play on like 1st and goal. But on Madden, it usually works. This is not Madden. This is real life. All these people are grown men. They are professional football players, and the play didn't work. Despite the disappointment, and I'm just gonna say, after the game, I was silent for 15 minutes. Like I was watching the game at a friend's house. There was like 10 to 15 people over there, and I said nothing. I just sat there. For a moment, I thought the Cowboys lost. Like I blanked out for a little bit. I couldn't believe it. But it probably, I'll say, it's the best Super Bowl game I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was a very good game. The game was close the whole time. It's back and forth, emotional pulls from both sides. But and another thing about this game is that the two of the biggest plays are basically, or not even biggest plays, but biggest performances came from players who weren't known.
Yep.
You talked about Butler from the Patriots. That was his first career interception. Chris Matthews from the Seahawks, an undrafted receiver from Kentucky, only played in 3 games before the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Never had a catch. He had 4 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown that game. He also wore number 13. Side note. So that's probably why he did that. But I mean, it was an excellent game. I mean, I think it's interesting to see what happens with Seattle afterwards.
Yep.
They have a lot of basically everybody in the secondary is having surgery this offseason.
They have salary cap issues now with Wilson's big contract.
They're talking about they want to offer Marshawn Lynch a big deal, which I'm a little upset about because I wanted him to come to Dallas and leave, but he might not leave now. But yeah, everybody in the secondary is having surgery. And it's just interesting to see how are they going to be able to fight back from this.
Yeah.
We saw the Spurs do it in basketball 2 years ago when they lost a title basically off missing free throws, and they were able to bounce back and get it back. But I think it's harder to come back to 3 straight Super Bowls in football. I think that's hard to do, and I think the NFC is going to be even better next year. And I don't know how they're going to be able to bounce back from that. And like you said, you have Russell Wilson getting a much bigger contract, which honestly he really doesn't deserve to be. I mean, just the way he's played. I mean, he's a good game manager, but he's not a $100 million type quarterback. But they have to give him that. So I think it's just interesting to see how they go on from here.
Yeah, I think especially in Wilson's case, he just kind of got into the right situation at the right time. He does seem to be like a solid quarterback, like you said, Darius. He is a game manager.
Yeah.
I don't really see him going out there and really winning you any games. I think you kind of saw it in the last 2 games. This terrible performance by the Packers was bailed out by the Packers completely choking that game away and not capitalizing on early opportunities. And then the Super Bowl, he obviously throws that big pick right there on the 1-yard line. Granted, it was a bad play call. And I think Butler just kind of wanted the ball a little bit more, it looked like, on that play. But still, I mean, he did throw the interception. He didn't have he didn't really have the best of games. I mean, it was solid. It was average, I guess. But that's kind of what you can say about him. It's like, I mean, he didn't lose the game for him necessarily. I mean, he almost did in their last 2 games now. Absolutely, that might have been the worst playoff performance I've ever seen in the NFL. Was that NFC Championship game against my Packers, and somehow they still win. I will be wondering that for a long time. And then in the Super Bowl, I mean, he throws the most memorable interception in probably the history of football, I'd say right now. But it's the exact opposite on the other end of the field for the Patriots. The legend Tom Brady, now on SportsCenter, being heralded as arguably the best of all time, whether it's him or Joe Montana. I guess ESPN says that's for you to decide. But Tom Brady became the third starting quarterback to win 4 Super Bowls, joining Terry Bradshaw and, as I just mentioned, Joe Montana. At 37 years old, Brady is the 4th oldest quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Brady went 13 seasons between his first and latest Super Bowl wins. According to Elias Sportsboro research, it's tied with Ted Hendricks for the most ever. Brady became the 6th quarterback to throw at least 4 touchdown passes in a Super Bowl. He went 8 for 8 for 69 yards on the Patriots' go-ahead drive and capped it off with a 3-yard touchdown throw to Julian Edelman, who made a nice little ankle breaker right there to get open in the corner of the end zone. And that 8 for 8 on that drive that's about as clutch as it can get. That's cold-blooded right there from Mr. Tom Brady himself. He has 13 career Super Bowl touchdown passes after surpassing Joe Montana for most all-time. Brady also became the first Super Bowl winning quarterback to actually beat the aforementioned Russell Wilson, which is a little surprising. I think that's more for his team than Mr. Wilson himself. Wilson was 10-0 against Super Bowl winning quarterbacks before this game. And I think Tom Brady, this is kind of my opinion on Tom Brady. When you look at this, obviously he's going to be, I think, forever linked to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning might very well be the best regular season quarterback of all time. But when it comes to big games, especially in the postseason, Peyton Manning just honestly hasn't got it done for me. I know there's a point where championships obviously don't mean everything when it comes to an individual player's career. Trust me, I do not have those... if we're going to look at it this way, the Kobe Bryant / Michael Jordan championship blinders. I mean, I am a LeBron fan. I know that argument very well. But, I mean, how many times has Peyton Manning just kind of lost it in the playoffs? This year he looked terrible. Granted, I think it was because of injury. But really, he's won 1 Super Bowl. Yeah. And even that Super Bowl, the Bears were the better team. Yeah. They just had Rex Grossman throw, I think, 2 interceptions and a fumble. And Cedric Benson also had a fumble in that game. And they still were able to squeak by the Bears. And this is the Packer fans saying that. The Bears should have won that Super Bowl. And there's just been too many times where he's come up small in big games in the playoffs for me, is Peyton Manning. And he has more chokes, I think, way more chokes than terrific, game-winning plays in the playoffs. That debacle last year in the Super Bowl where they got run out of the freaking gym by the Seahawks. The Super Bowl before that is last with the Colts, which was where he threw that big interception, which was returned by, I believe, Tracy Porter for the touchdown. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the moments what I remember from Peyton Manning is he's on the wrong end of a lot of these memories for me in the playoffs, whereas Tom Brady's kind of the exact opposite. Yeah, he had the 2 Super Bowl losses to the Giants, which I still don't understand how they lost either of those games. How Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl wins over Tom Brady, I still don't get. But Tom Brady is kind of the exact opposite of Peyton Manning. He's won a couple MVPs in the regular season, but just his postseason performances have been insane. I mean, I know a lot of people don't really like Tom Brady. They say he might be a cheater, stuff like that. I don't really buy into that too much. I think the stuff that his team has done, honestly, has been overblown. I guarantee you more teams than just the Patriots do that. They were the ones to get caught and everything. Yeah. So that's why, I like the Patriots. I like Tom Brady. I like Bill Belichick. They're winners. I think most people dislike them just because they win. I'm a fan of Tom Brady. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a bit underrated. Honestly, I would take him over Peyton Manning. If I'm going to win a game, if I'm going to win a Super Bowl, I want Tom Brady over Peyton Manning any day. The guy just, like I said, he's the opposite. He has more big-time plays in playoff games than chokes. And that's why I think Tom Brady's definitely a better quarterback than Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I personally can't stand Tom Brady at all, or Bill Belichick, or Peyton Manning, but I have to agree with you 100%. I would take Tom Brady. And you even mentioned, I think the biggest thing about Peyton Manning is that all the time that he loses in the playoffs, it's all the stuff he does. Yep. Even when Tom Brady lost to the Giants both times, he made the plays to win that game. And it's just Eli Manning.
The 2 crazy catches,
exactly.
Honestly.
Like, you can't say, oh, he threw the game away. Like, we've seen Peyton Manning throw plenty of games away. And so I think that it's different. There's a difference between losing and choking, as you said. And Peyton Manning has choked them away. And maybe the big games are just too much for him. So, yeah, if I definitely needed a game to win and I had to choose between those two, I would definitely choose Brady 10 times out of 10. I'm not gonna get into is he the greatest quarterback of all time. Then that's really a conversation that I never had.
That's something that ESPN wants you to talk about, though.
Well, then they're gonna I want them to pay me. Then they're gonna have to pay me if they want me to talk about it. My number, you can reach me after this if you need to. But yeah, it was. He's got 4 Super Bowls. There's nothing really you can say about it. I agree with you. I think the whole cheating thing, especially this deflate gate crap, was too much.
That's ESPN for you. They take something little and they need 24 hours of sports talk, so they'll take that and just blow it up.
A deflated ball doesn't help you blow out somebody. So I'm not really like, maybe if it was a 3 or 7 point game, we could talk about it. But they ran the Colts off the field. So
and in the second half, they said they used normally deflated balls, and that's when they went 28-0. It was 28-0 in the second half.
So I don't care nothing about all that. They won the Super Bowl fair and square. I just think it's interesting though from an NFC perspective how I saw this on Twitter. I believe Dragonfly Jones tweeted this. That's one of I encourage anybody if you have a Twitter you don't follow him. That's one of the best follows out there. He said if you look at the sequence of how things happen, the Lions lost to the Cowboys in a heartbreaker. Cowboys lost to the Packers in the heartbreaker. Packers lost to the Seahawks in the heartbreaker, and then Seahawks lost in the heartbreaker. So it's kind of all a cycle. I thought that was interesting. But I mean, hey, Patriots, they won. As far as I'm concerned, they won the Super Bowl fair and square.
Oh yeah,
more power to them. I just wish that they did it because I don't like them. But I mean, I don't have any cheating or anything problem. Tom Brady is obviously you can't argue that he's one of the greatest. Yep. Definitely top 5, probably top 3, top 2, whatever. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So hey, he's winning. Can't really say nothing about it.
Yeah, and you look at the teams he's played with. I think he's had maybe worse, especially receivers around him than Peyton Manning has, especially with that Broncos team. There's no excuse for them to get just completely shut down by that pretty much same Seahawks team last year that we saw Tom Brady play effectively. I know he had the 2 interceptions, but I believe he still had, 3 touchdown passes?
4.
4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a heck of a game from Tom Brady. He deserved that Super Bowl MVP mention. And I don't know. I think just those two are ever going to be linked together as Brady and Manning because being big rivals in the primes of their careers.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's interesting that Tom Brady wants to keep playing into his 40s. It looks like this is going to be either the last season for Manning or he might very well be done. I think we're going to find out pretty soon. And Tom Brady's still going strong. He's still an MVP candidate each year.
Yeah, he is.
So that's just kind of something I found a little bit interesting. The most talked about play, though, was that Butler's interception. Might be now the most famous and biggest play in the history of the Super Bowl. Butler's interception came just after he was on the wrong side of the end of Jermaine Kearse's seat of his pants catch, which was almost the 3rd crazy catch to defeat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. I know if I was a Patriots fan, like I know you got a couple in the broadcasting department. I don't understand that, but hey, to each their own. I mean, you like the Cowboys, so I mean, I guess that's okay. I mean, hey, I'm not judging. I don't judge people. I'm not in that business. I mean, do you? Whatever. But they must have been very nervous. I already know if I was a Patriots fan, and after that catch, because I remember seeing that catch, I just remember thinking, wow, not again for the Patriots. Not again. If my heart would have been in my stomach, I'd been, this is done. We're going to lose if I like the Patriots. I probably would have left the building if I was at the Super Bowl. Just because that always seems to happen to the Patriots. But despite that great catch by Jermaine Kearse, Butler had only played 14 snaps in the Patriots' first 2 playoff games this season, but he played most of the integral role of his life. It was the first interception thrown from the 1-yard line this season. The last play of the season is the first 1-yard line interception. Much will be made as to whether the Seahawks should have run the ball, like you already said, and pretty much everybody else who knows anything about football has said. Yeah. Much will be made as if the Seahawks should have run the ball with beast mode Marshawn Lynch himself in the backfield. Lynch had 5 previous runs from the 1 this season and had scored 1 touchdown in such instance, which is kind of that one little, defending point if you're going to defend Pete Carroll, which I will not do. My kind of least favorite head coach in the NFL. I cannot stand the man at all. So once again, very happy to see his reaction on the sideline there. And still, I understand might not be why they lost the game necessarily, but still, I think when you have beast mode and it was 1st and goal, I believe, there's no reason to do that. Maybe if you want to throw mixed up, you don't get in the first time, maybe throw it on 2nd down, I guess.
Oh, it was 2nd and 1.
Okay.
Still, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think you got to go beast mode there. I guess I thought it was 1st down, so I guess that's my mistake. I guess I could kind of understand that, but still, when you do have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, the guy's nickname is Beast Mode for a reason.
Exactly. And I mean, the play before that on the 1st down, since you mentioned it, he ran for like 6 yards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he got him from about the 5 right to the 1.
To get to the 1-yard line.
I thought he was going to score when I was watching that.
I'm like, all you got to do is give him the ball, and I mean, the game is over. So, I mean, I'm not one of these people who likes, a lot of times when a last play of a game doesn't go in the way you want, you say, oh, that's the play that lost us the game. And then I don't like doing that because I'm looking like, oh no, there's another play.
Yeah.
You could have did better. But I'm gonna go with this one. That's the play that lost the game. Forget all the other stuff. Forget anything that Tom Brady did or Edelman with the nice ankle breaker, anything like that. Gronkowski killing Cam Chancellor basically. He was lighting him up. I know Cam was hurt, but at the same time, hey, Gronk was doing his thing. But still, that play, it really gets no easier than that. On the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to force New England to stop me. That's why I said I blacked out. I feel like the Cowboys lost because they remind me of something we would do. I feel like that's the type of the way we would lose a game like that. Throwing on 2nd and 1 and Tony Romo throwing a pick, something like that. I just couldn't believe that they called that play. That will never make sense to me.
Yeah.
One day, maybe I'll have to talk to Pete Carroll, and I need to hear some real explanations because even after the interview, I wasn't satisfied.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I think that's just kind of who Pete Carroll is, which is another reason I don't like him. He's the type of guy to be like, ha, I'm smarter than you. And sometimes, I mean, it has worked out like that fake field goal against the Packers. But it's nice to see that type of play blow up in his face and lose him the Super Bowl. Like I said, I don't hate on much. I try not to be a hater. But I am definitely a Seattle Seahawks hater, so this is bringing me a lot of joy. I've waited a year for this because it was you who got to gloat last year to all of us in the room.
Yes,
and I'm a little sad I don't have my fellow haters because it would be 3-on-1 right now. So I gotta make up for it a little bit and get a little bit more hate. I don't really like having this much negativity in me, but I mean, I guess it'll be okay for one night. I'll let it slide. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just a case of Pete Carroll trying to be like, I'm smarter than you, Mr. Belichick. And on the biggest play of his career, it kind of blew up in his face. Speaking of Bill Belichick, something I know you don't like, most people don't like. I don't really have a problem with the guy. I think he's a winner personally. But head coach Bill Belichick tied Chuck Noll's record of 4 Super Bowl victories, which I guess backs up my opinion of him, I guess, being a winner. Granted, I guess I can understand why people don't like him. He's not the most sociable person out there. Belichick is the 6th coach to win at least 4 NFL titles, including coaches prior to the 1966 season. He's the 3rd oldest head coach to win a Super Bowl at age 62 and trails Tom Coughlin, 65, and Dick Vermeil, 63. Belichick's 6 Super Bowl appearances as a head coach are tied with Don Shula for the most ever. His 9 appearances as a player, assistant coach, or head coach tied Dan Reeves for the most ever, which is extremely impressive. According, once again, to Elias Sportsboro, their research, Bill Belichick is 11-0 in the postseason against teams he had faced for the first time that season. The Seahawks are the first defending champion to lose the Super Bowl since the 1997 Packers, who lost to John Elway and the Broncos, which I remember crying my eyes out when I was about 4 or 5 years old about that one, because, I mean, growing up in Chicago, that's the only reason I'm a Packers fan, really, is Mr. Brett Favre, so that's probably my first painful memory when it comes to sports. That's my first heartbreaking memory was that Super Bowl. But, yeah, so Bill Belichick just kind of proven he's in the case for greatest coach of all time. I know you don't really like to debate that too much, but what do you think now about at least his resume that he's building up?
No, his resume is top notch. I mean, you just look at all you got to look at is really what the last 10 years. Well, maybe a little bit longer. Basically 15.
He wasn't their coach when they lost to the Packers in the Super Bowl. I think that was Parcells, I believe.
Yeah, he wasn't there. I remember he was the coach of the Browns before he got to New England, and he got fired because he didn't do too well there. But basically, him and Tom Brady, since they've gotten together, I mean, you have to say, 4 Super Bowls in around 15 years. Yeah. That's very impressive.
Yep.
So
they made 6 Super Bowl appearances, 6 conference championships.
So I mean, you got to give him, all the credit in the world. He's definitely proven to be an excellent coach. So I mean, hey, more power to him. That's just what it is. I wouldn't even despite his winner, I wouldn't want him to come to Dallas though. Like I just can't get behind. I just don't. No. I just don't.
You don't like the sweater?
Yeah, I mean, I actually like the sweater part. Okay. I mean, because the more casual you can look in a professional realm, the more I support. But I just don't vibe with him like that. But I mean, he's winning and his team is winning, so I mean, I guess it's not really too much you can say when somebody keeps winning.
Yeah. I can tell you they love him in Boston, though. My brother, who goes to school at Dartmouth up in New Hampshire, it's the Boston area, and all the natives there love Boston. They love the Patriots. I was up there over in the fall. Actually, Halloween weekend is when I got to visit my brother and see them play Harvard. And we went to a couple restaurants, and on Halloween night, at least half the servers were dressed up as Bill Belichick with the cutoff sweater and the headset on. So I know they do love him up in the Atlantic Northeast kind of area, even all the way into New Hampshire. They're only about 30 minutes from Quebec, Montreal, Canada, about 2 hours from Boston itself. and there's still diehard Patriots fans in the area. And I know Bill Belichick has become a beloved icon up there. It's kind of interesting to see. I know my brother's starting to get a little sick of it, but for him, he doesn't mind the Patriots. I know he gets sick of all the Bruins fans up there because we're obviously big Blackhawks fans. If somehow you didn't know that, that's kind of my religion. We'll get to that kind of at the end of the show. I think we'll finish with a little hockey if we have time. But I guess that's enough Super Bowl talk. We've only got about 10 minutes left for the NFL before we switch over to some basketball. What are your thoughts from the season? What are you taking away from the 2014 NFL season, and what are you looking forward to for this offseason, which has now officially begun for the NFL?
Well, of course, all my answers are going to revolve around myself, so the Dallas Cowboys. I'm very happy with the season we had because I didn't think we were going to be this good. Tied for the best record in the NFC with 12-4. Off season, I'm going to just keep it once again with myself. I hope Jerry Jones does the right thing. Dez Bryant and DeMarco Murray are free agents right now. We have to bring Dez back. They're talking about a franchise tag. I don't want that. Give him a long-term deal. Franchise tag is only 1 year, then we got to go through all this again. It's hard for DeMarco to come back because the money's not really there. So I don't think he's going to be back. So rumors, of course, that Adrian Peterson, I don't really want him. If Marshawn Lynch,
want Adrian?
I don't know. I just feel like his best years are behind him.
You think so?
Yeah, I just feel like it is. Now, if he wants to surprise me, then hey, more power to you. But I just feel like his best years are behind him. I mean, I know him and Marshawn Lynch are the same age. And if for some reason Marshawn would want to take a pay cut, which I don't know why he would, but if he would, Dallas is always ready. Maybe we could throw in some incentives for him. Darius personally greets him. I know he would enjoy something like that.
You get to ride in his Lambo with the ropes and everything when you park. You'll rope off the Lambo.
Exactly. I'll rope for the first week. I'll rope off the Lambo myself and stand security outside the driver's seat. But it's really just what Dallas does, and we need a lot of help defensively, especially in the secondary. Because I feel like we, going into next season with the way we played this year, I feel like we have to be one of the favorites. I definitely do. That's just how I feel about it. And then, like I said, it's interesting to see what Seattle does. But, I mean, Arizona was a good team this year.
They need a quarterback to be healthy.
Yeah, and I don't know if Fitzgerald's going to be back. They might cut him. I think he has $25 million.
I think he said he wants to leave, too.
And then, I mean, I wonder what's going on with your Packers. As I said, Aaron Rodgers, to me, is still the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
But defensively, I know y'all had some injuries. Is B.J. Raji finally going to be healthy going into a year?
He hasn't really been B.J. Raji since they won the Super Bowl.
Exactly. So I'm interested to see how y'all, go ahead with that and just being healthy. I mean, I just feel like it was a good year this year overall. I mean, a lot of teams did a lot of good things. I'm not really too intrigued with the draft because, I mean, a lot of the press is coming from quarterbacks, and we don't need any big-name players in Dallas anyway. We just need more like defensive players and linemen and stuff like that. But it's been a good year, and I just hope Dallas continues on a sequence, that we kind of ended with.
Okay, I understand that. At least for me, one of the things I'm taking away was Dez Bryant ended up being the best wide receiver in football this year. Because I believe Calvin Johnson had an injury for at least half the season, but still more power to Dez in the season he had this year. He deserves to get a big contract, like you said. I like Dez. I think he's a solid player. I think his attitude has gotten better. At first, I really disliked the guy. I thought he had a sour attitude, but I think he's matured a lot during his time in Dallas. So I guess more power to him and your Cowboys. For me, kind of what I'm going to take away is the performances of the MVP, my boy Aaron Rodgers, as well as J.J. Watt, who I know a lot of people thought should have won the MVP. At the end of the day, you're going to be hard-pressed to take a defensive end over a quarterback in a quarterback's league. But I do think there is an argument for him, though, as the MVP in the NFL this year. He was the unanimous defensive player of the year, and the season he had is one we might not see again. So even though I'm a Packers fan and Aaron Rodgers might be my favorite player in the NFL, with Brett Favre now long and gone, you might have. I'm a little sad almost that Watt didn't win the MVP, just because to kind of give him that little stamp, that star, and to kind of go down truly in the history books for the season that he had, which is arguably the best a defensive player has ever had. What do he have? Like 4 touchdown catches this year?
I believe so. Yeah.
So I'm almost a little sad, even though I'm a big Packers fan, that J.J. Watt did not win the MVP. Though if you're gonna get my vote on it, I probably still would have voted for Rodgers, but I'm clearly biased, so my vote probably should not count in that regard. But still, for me, obviously, going personal, what I'm going to remember is the Packers choke in the playoffs, really. I'll remember the catch, the rule with Dez Bryant that got us to that point, and then just blowing the next game. I knew they were going to lose the whole time. The whole time. When they missed those two early turnovers, and they were both field goals, I believe one of which was from the 1 yard line. They couldn't get it in, and they kicked 2 field goals. I just knew they were going to lose. I never had any confidence the whole game. I remember one of my good friends texted me right before Russell Wilson ran it in, which then led to the onside kick debacle.
Yeah.
Before that, he's like, hey, I think he was joking around with me, but he's like, the Packers are going to lose this game. I'm like, I know. I was being dead serious. I'm like, we are going to lose this game. And I said it. I was watching it with my dad and my brother, who are 2 big Bears fans, but they were also kind of pulling with me just to go NFC and to support their family. But the whole game, I was like, we're going to lose. The Packers are going to lose. They're like, stop. They're not going to lose. The Seahawks are playing terrible. Wilson's choking. I'm like, no. You don't capitalize on opportunities against a great team like the Seahawks, you're going to lose the game. That's what I think cost Dallas, regardless of that catch. Yeah. Dallas could have had the Packers down and out early, but you guys couldn't capitalize. And then the same thing. Hey, I told you the week before karma is a female dog, and that's what ended up getting us the same exact thing. It wasn't that onside kick. Do not blame. I do not remember the guy's name who actually, he wasn't even supposed to go up for that for the Packers.
Yeah,
he was supposed to be a blocker, and he went up instead and botched it. It's not his fault that we lost. It's missed opportunities early why we lost. I think Aaron Rodgers didn't look himself the whole game. He was still a bit hobbled by that calf injury, which is kind of for me a little bit of a what if. What if Rodgers was healthy? I think if he was, we could have probably put him away. All we needed was 1 touchdown. Of those 2 or 3 early opportunities where we got field goals, just need 1 touchdown out of that. Just 1, and we win that ball game. So for me, that's going to stick around with me for a while. And yeah, so I guess it's kind of at least a little bit of a negative way to end the season for me. But hey, Seattle got what was finally coming to them, so I'll be happy with that. And for me, I'm really kind of interested. Really, all I'm going to take away from this draft is the 2 big names, which is Winston and Mariota. Being a bit of an Oregon fan, I'm not too big into college football, but if I am going to watch college football, Oregon is one of my teams. So obviously, I was pretty upset over winter break with their poor performance, getting completely dominated and outplayed by a team I cannot stand, which is Ohio State. But I think Mariota, I don't know. I like the guy. He definitely deserved the Heisman. Had probably the most dominant season in college football history. But I'm interested to see if he can play in the NFL. He was a system quarterback at Oregon. He had a lot of easy throws in that kind of up-tempo system that Chip Kelly started. Now Mark Helfrich has kind of perfected. So I don't know if he's got the arm or the footwork necessarily for the NFL. I think he's got the athleticism. But we've seen you got to be a pocket passer. You got to throw out of the pocket if you really want to win. And we'll see if Mariota can do that at an NFL level. If he has the arm, strength, and accuracy for that, as well as Jameis Winston. I think Winston has the talent, and he's the more NFL-ready physically of the two, but can this guy get his head straight? He's like Johnny Manziel, only worse. All Johnny Manziel does is party, which, I mean, he just checked himself into rehab, but I think he's got worse attitude problems than Manziel. Manziel seems to be a good teammate. You know, he puts in the work. He just likes to party a little bit too much, which, I mean, he's 22. I mean, I'm about to be 22, so I can understand the feeling, Manziel. I got you, boy. But, still, he's going into rehab for partying and stuff like that. So I wonder if Winston and his kind of attitude problems I think that's the big problem with him. So if I had to choose right now, I probably honestly would take Mariota because I really don't have much faith that Winston's going to get his head straight by the time the season has started. And that's kind of what I'm going to take away from this NFL season. That's what I'm looking forward to. I want to see, too, if the Packers can make some moves defensively. The defense just has not really been the same since we won the Super Bowl. It's been a little disappointing. So I want to see what they do, especially in the draft. And that's going to go ahead and take us to our second break here on C4 Sports. On the other side of this, we're going to be talking some basketball, specifically NBA, because that is what me and my partner over here know. Not too much college basketball. We're going to be talking a lot about the Pro Bowl. Damian Lillard, your boy Darius.
Yes, sir.
Snubbed by the All-Star team. I don't think there's any debate about that. My boy, Mr. LeBron James, has been tearing it up and is still, everybody's sleeping on him. If we're talking MVP, they're still sleeping on my boy. So that's a very dangerous thing, as well as Oklahoma City. Doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. They're starting to run out of time. The All-Star break is right around the corner.
Yep. Will
they make the playoffs? All that and more coming up at the other side of this break. It's C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog.
Sports returns live from Studio 326, and now it is time to get to some basketball coverage, specifically the NBA. Now we're going to start this off with some NBA All-Star Weekend news, which takes place, I believe, in 2 weeks.
I think so.
Yeah. And first of all, let's go ahead. As you previewed, Matt, you talked about my boy Damian Lillard being an All-Star game snub. At first, it was him and DeMarcus Boogie Cousins, who ended up being Kobe Bryant's injury replacement, so he got in. But Damian Lillard was snubbed. Basically, the only snub that I really believe who should have got in, because I don't believe anybody in the East was snubbed. Some people say Kyle Korver, some say Brandon Knight, but I don't really see them getting in over specifically Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
But Damian Lillard was snubbed for, I believe, Chris Paul. I don't believe Chris Paul has been playing better than him. Tim Duncan made the All-Star team. He's only averaging 15 points per game this year. It seems like he's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award again. He's got that, I believe, a few years ago. It's like the second time in 5 years. And Kevin Durant made the All-Star team, even though he's missed 24 games and only played 21. So I don't really understand what the coaches are doing. I actually thought the fans did a pretty good job with voting this year. I mean, James Harden should be starting over Kobe, but we know Kobe's going to get a lot of votes. He's been there longer. He has a lot of, fans all over the place. But with the fans voting in, people like Kyle Lowry, John Wall, both the Gasol brothers, Mark and Powell, I feel like the fans did a pretty good job this year. So I can't really complain about what the fans did. But the coaches, I'm like, I don't really understand what they're looking at. It's kind of like some coaches were like, you know what, we're just going to vote for the names that we know instead of who's actually playing well right now.
Yeah, I just don't see how you leave Damian Lillard off the All-Star list. He's actually, I believe, in third place right now for NBA MVP, or excuse me, fourth, at least when it comes to the real official ladder. And he's kind of off the All-Star list. He's had a heck of a season. He's been really one of the names that, have you just kind of been coasting by with the NBA, he's one of the names other than, I'd say, Steph Curry, that you've heard a lot this year, at least one of these new guys coming up to get up there with LeBron and Durant. I think Durant been a little unfortunate this year with the circumstances around him. The team has always kind of, I think him and Westbrook has really made that team look better than they are, and with him out as well as Westbrook at times, their weaknesses have been completely exposed, and Durant was hurt to start the season. He had a serious injury, and so he's just kind of struggled. It's been a down year for KD. LeBron, people are still sleeping on him, but now you got these two who are coming up, and they deserve the attention. They're getting Steph Curry at 51 last night. I saw some of that on ESPN. He had that 26-point third quarter, and the Warriors have just been scorching out of the gates, so he deserves all the credit that he's getting. How about Atlanta sitting atop the Eastern Conference standings? I couldn't have told you that coming into the season, that was going to happen. They're only
41-9.
Yeah, that's
best record
insane.
in the NBA.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. I don't think anybody guessed that. And if you're trying to tell me that you guessed that, I will call you a liar straight to your face.
Exactly.
I believe that the NBA, actually, NBA.com, had some funny shenanigans going on today as they named the starting five, each player from the Atlanta Hawks starting five as the Eastern Conference Player of the Month for January.
Yeah, I felt like that was a bailout by the NBA instead of just choosing one player specifically. I understand why if you're choosing Atlanta, who I believe was on an 18-game win streak until they just lost to New Orleans the other night. I understand why you can't necessarily choose one player from the team, but I mean, come on, it's called Player of the Month. You can't choose five guys. So I mean, like Damari Carroll is sharing part of that. He's not an NBA Player of the Month, but I mean, like you said, the Hawks have done something that I guarantee you the Hawks didn't even think they were going to be doing.
No.
Being 41-9. It's crazy. A lot of talk right now that I've been having, and I'm starting to hear other people have, is exactly how far do we think they're going to get in the playoffs? I don't think they're getting to the NBA Finals. No. You mentioned your boy LeBron. Cleveland has won 11 games in a row. They're on a roll right now, specifically since they got Timothy Mozgov, and LeBron is, ever since he got off that injury, even when they were still losing a little bit, ever since he came back from sitting out a little while, he's been on fire.
He had like 7, I think, straight 30-point games.
Kyrie, we know he had the 55 or something like that last week.
And LeBron didn't play in that game.
Exactly. So, I mean, they definitely seem to be clicking on all cylinders right now. The Bulls still in a struggle.
Yeah.
I don't like what I'm seeing from the Bulls. They don't come out with energy, and that really disappoints me. I'm not even a Bulls fan, but just being somebody who picked them to get to the finals. They don't come out with energy. Derrick Rose is averaging over 5 threes a game, which is horrible because he can't shoot.
Yep.
He's not aggressive. He just had his third. Well, he is being aggressive, but he's not being as aggressive as he should be. Everything inside the paint is good for him. Layups, mid-range jumpers, that's fine. I don't like the threes. He's not getting to the line a lot. And he just finally had his third dunk of the season last night, which, I mean...
If you would have told me, despite the injury and everything, that Derrick Rose, February 5th or 6th?
5th, yeah.
5th. February 5th, that Derrick Rose would have 3 dunks on the season, I would facepalm.
So. Yeah. It's crazy to see. I mean... You would think that with the injuries that other teams have had, besides Atlanta, that the Bulls would be a second seed right now, second or third.
Oh, yeah.
But Toronto had injuries with DeMar DeRozan. They're still at second. Washington, Brad Bill has said that his team is playing soft right now. They've lost 4 in a row, but they're still at third, and eventually Cleveland is probably going to pass them up. They're only a game behind. But it's amazing to see how Cleveland is rising and Chicago is falling at basically the same times right now. With the bottom of the East, I would say Miami is probably disappointing me. We knew that they weren't going to be as good, of course. LeBron is gone, but I think anywhere from around like 3 to 6 is probably where I would have thought they could be. They're at the 8th seed, hanging on. Charlotte has finally started playing good ball, which is good because they were disappointing me.
Lance Stevenson's still on that team?
Yeah. I heard he's starting to play a little bit better. Yeah, there was a proposed deal to send him to Brooklyn that kind of fell through.
Okay.
Yeah, but then, like you said, I believe some people are still kind of sleeping on LeBron because even when you just say right now, LeBron is an MVP race, and then you think like, oh, Cleveland's not playing well, and then you look, they won 11 in a row. They're playing well,
and they don't have Kevin Love playing well either. He's still just being a spot-up shooter. That's it.
Yeah, so LeBron has to be climbing up the MVP ladder. As of right now, I would still have Steph Curry 1 and then James Harden 2. Those two are on a different level right now. Despite Golden State winning, I still feel like Memphis is the best team in the NBA. To me, Memphis is the best team. Maybe if they play Cleveland just because of star power might be able to get them. But as far as like everybody else, I think Memphis is better than Golden State just because when the game slows down, having Zebo and having Marc Gasol, you're able to have 2 guys in the post who can score. Adding Jeff Green, of course, helps. I don't know what the news surrounding Vince Carter's most recent injury was. I haven't seen any updates on that.
He's having a heck of a season.
Yeah, but he was playing well before he had a injury a few days ago. So I mean, I feel like they're up there. Portland has fallen a little bit, and that's the thing about the West. You lose 2 or 3 games, you fall down to 4 or 5, and then next thing you know, you win 2 or 3, and you might be back at 1 or 2. Everybody is bunched up in there. So really, I just think it's going to be a great playoffs.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be basically the most surprising, or not necessarily surprising, but exciting.
I think this is kind of be the most wide open that it's been in a while. Because coming into the season, I know me and Ryan, our criticism of the NBA, especially when it came to because the NBA and NHL playoffs are at the same time, and I would much rather watch the NHL playoffs than the NBA. I do enjoy the NBA playoffs. Don't get me wrong. But I think at least for me, the case was the NHL playoffs were much better. And my case for that was when it comes to hockey, you never know who's going to win. We had an 8 seed a few years ago. LA, their first win, they were an 8 seed. They beat the 1, 2, 3, and 1 seed to win the Stanley Cup. You never see that in basketball. I think this year is the first time where you coming into the past couple of years, it's going to be Miami, maybe Chicago if Rose is healthy, and it's going to be San Antonio, Oklahoma City, stuff like that. This is the first year since I can remember at least 5, 6, 7 years that this is. I don't know. I have no idea who's going to take this one.
Exactly.
So that's what makes this very interesting. I think you're right, Darius. This could be the best playoffs we've seen in a very, very, very long time because it's completely unpredictable. And at least for me, I know most people kind of agree with me, unpredictability in sports is a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And the point you made, which I like a lot, is why I'm not buying into the Golden State hype. And it's what you were talking about Memphis. When you said the game slows down, they get better. That's what the playoff basketball is. You see a lot less of the sloppy play in the playoffs. So you see a lot better defense being played once playoff time comes around. And the game really slows down. That's why you see a lot of these teams kind of struggle. And Golden State is not what I would call a great half-court team. They have improved a lot this year, but I know they rely on David Lee and Andrew Bogut, who I think is still hurt, which would not surprise me. I know he's still struggling with injuries a little bit. I don't know if he's back yet.
I know he played last night, the game before that. So I think he's back, but who knows how healthy he actually is.
And I like that what you said. I think Memphis takes out Golden State in the playoffs if they meet because it's a different game in the playoffs. It's a completely different ball game. Even for the point, obviously being a Chicago Bulls fan as well as a big LeBron fan, the big playoff meetups between the Heat and the Bulls. The Bulls owned LeBron James when he was in Miami. I don't think he won maybe 2 regular season games against them. Then he essentially swept them both times. After losing game 1, he won 4 in a row. By my count, that's a sweep. So in the playoffs, I'm telling you, the playoffs are a whole different animal. Whether we're talking hockey or basketball, the Hawks are struggling a little bit. We'll get to that later, but they're struggling a little bit. Everybody's kind of getting on me. I'm like, that's a team that's built for the playoffs. When you look at a team, I think Memphis is kind of the same way. That's a team that's built for playoff basketball right there. And I think I'd agree with you, Darius. Right now, if I'm going to pick one team, it's going to be Memphis. I know Atlanta is kind of I've heard them called the Spurs of the East. And I think that's a fair comparison with the way they play, especially they don't have the big star power. But I just think Memphis is too deep and they're too big, and they've been there before. They've been on the cusp a few times. And I think this year could be the year they take advantage of the fact that there's no superpower. It seems like the Spurs, I think, are going to be there again. If I had to choose the team that Memphis plays in the conference final, I think it's the Spurs. Just because when it comes to playoff time, it's San Antonio's time. I know that they're kind of having a down year right now, but I think they're going to turn it around in time.
And it's interesting that you say that because of the season ended today. Memphis and San Antonio will play in the first round. But I want to touch on something that you said leading into this was about Oklahoma City. First of all, they have 2 All-Stars, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. I said how Kevin Durant shouldn't be an All-Star. But you talked about how it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to make it. And it's interesting. I don't want to hear anybody say, oh, because, the injuries and have an excuse. No, it's because their team is not built, I feel like, to win long-term. And I'm starting to actually feel like Kevin Durant might go to the Wizards in 2 years. Because if you look at the moves they made, even bringing in Dion Waiters, they haven't surrounded Westbrook and Durant, I feel like, with players who are going to help them win. Steven Adams, I feel like, was a nice draft pick, and I think he's going to develop fine. But Kendrick Perkins, that whole thing didn't necessarily work out. Picking Ibaka over Harden, which I was behind at first. Right now, it's starting to look worse as every day goes along. And Ibaka's a solid player. Don't get me wrong. Nick Collison is getting a 2-year, $8 million extension, and it's like it's really not making sense. I've been saying for years Scott Brooks is a horrible coach. He needs to be fired. He doesn't really call any plays. If you look at how they play when Durant or Westbrook is out, when it's either just Durant or Westbrook by himself, you look at how they play. Almost every night you see Durant or Westbrook having a 30-point game. Yeah. And you just watch the highlights like, okay, but you realize because nobody else on the court is doing anything. They're keeping the ball and shooting most of the time. Yeah. Which, I can't blame them if there's no plays being called, but you have guys surrounding you like Anthony Morrow, who just want to shoot threes. That's his specialty. Dion Waiters has never made a shot that he didn't like. Serge Ibaka now feels like he's Steph Curry. He's shooting threes all the time. I just feel like their team is built properly for – if you said 2 years ago, you would think Oklahoma City was going to be a perennial power for years. And now – I feel like the bottom is falling out. They may not struggle like this again next year with the same cast. They're going to be a playoff team, but being one of those top competing teams, everybody else is getting better. Golden State is a young team. Portland is a young team. Houston has Harden, who's young. Howard is a little bit up there, but age-wise, he's still kind of young. These are young teams that are rising up the ranks. Yeah. And, you looking at even Phoenix. Phoenix is a young team, and they're going to probably be better if they can bring Dragic back. So I don't know what's going on with Oklahoma City, but that whole thing might have ended before they even got a real runoff. Yeah, it's a little sad. I do like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. I like the team they have down there in Oklahoma City. It might be the best atmosphere in the NBA is down there in Oklahoma City. But I don't know. It's kind of disappointing to see this because they should be a playoff team, but they're not. Yeah. I don't know. It's just the fact that they're not going to make the playoffs is a little disappointing to me. I don't really know any other way to put it, really, because New Orleans is not going to slow down. Neither is Phoenix. They're both going to be competing for that 8 spot. I think it's kind of a 3-way race right now, and I don't see Oklahoma City winning that race. I think, too, they've kind of struggled a little bit. They've kind of, I felt, bent to the will of Durant and Westbrook with some of the decisions they made. They've made their decisions just to please them, especially financially, trying to get both of them these huge contracts, which, they both deserve it, but at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like they've just kind of bent to the will of those two a little bit, and it's going to hurt them in the long run. Yeah, it hurts the development of the rest of your roster because you don't have enough money, to pay for everybody. So, it definitely is going to hurt them, and it's hurting them right now. I just don't really understand what they're really going to do. Reggie Jackson, his contract is up at the end of the year, and still one thing that the Harden trade did that a lot of people don't realize because they look at positions more so than how people play. Harden was really the point guard for that team because he's a guy who, and I applaud him. I'm not a James Harden fan per se. I used to be when he was in college, but things change. We know I change my feelings about people a little bit often, but he's a great player. But one thing even about him now that I applaud him for, he's a great scorer, leading the NBA in scoring, but he's not selfish. He definitely has no problem moving the ball. I see him pass the ball a lot. I watched, a lot of his highlights. He passes the ball a lot. That's what he did for OKC. He wasn't scoring a lot, but he was passing the ball to Westbrook and Durant. The Thunder right now have no true point guard. We know Westbrook isn't a true point guard. Neither is Reggie Jackson. They don't have a guy there who can just, set people up, for plays, which on top of that, they don't have plays because of Scott Brooks. So it's really interesting to see what they're going to do with that roster because, as you said, with big contracts to Durant, you have big contract to Westbrook. Nick Collison is taking $8 million. I believe Perkins' money is kind of big up there, too. Ibaka has a nice-sized contract. You don't have a lot of room to kind of maneuver, to bring in different types of players.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting in a bad way. I'm almost sad because you deserve to see Kevin Durant in the playoffs, honestly. Same with Russell Westbrook. I don't think you're going to get that this year because I don't see Phoenix or New Orleans moving out of the way to allow them into a playoff spot. And it is kind of sad after the great season we saw from Kevin Durant, especially that great month. I believe it was a year ago. I think it was last January, which is kind of what won him the MVP over LeBron. Just to see him fall off this year is a little sad. The injury, I know, has had a lot to do with it. And I think he's been kind of close to his normal self, but it just has not been good enough for the team to kind of climb back into right now. And we're going to go ahead and talk MVPs. I want to hear your opinion on this right now, because I always find the MVP award the most interesting in the NBA, because to me it is the most, I guess, individualistic of the team sports. So I think that's where the MVP award really means the most, is in basketball. Right now, according to NBA.com, Stephen Curry of the Warriors is number one, which I think everybody could agree upon it, as well as James Harden at number 2 for the Rockets. Like you just said, this is where things get interesting. Now, LeBron has moved up a spot. He's actually number 3, is my boy, after the 11-game win streak for the Cavs. I think the 7 straight 30-point games. I know he's had a couple double-doubles in there. So my boy LeBron moves up to number 3. Jeff Teague is whose spot he took. Teague was 3 last week of the Hawks.
Okay.
Now he's 4. A little surprised to see Jeff Teague that high up on the All-Star list, MVP list.
Same here.
Number 5 is your boy, Damian Lillard. I would probably put him ahead of Jeff Teague.
Yeah.
Because he's having a heck of a season. He's definitely top 3 or top. I think you make the case him and LeBron for 3. Marc Gasol is 6, which is a little surprising. I would expect him to be a spot or 2 higher as well. John Wall, 7 of the Wizards. Number 8 is Steph Curry's running mate, the other member of the Splash Bros. That's Klay Thompson from the Warriors, who's having a heck of a season as well. I'm a little surprised to see him on the MVP list, though, especially at number 8. Number 9 is Kyle Lowry of the Raptors, representing Canada a little bit. The Raptors are quietly the second best team right now in the East, with the Hawks and the rising Cavaliers taking most of the media attention. And number 10 is Russell Westbrook of the Thunder. No Kevin Durant on that list. A lot of big names kind of left off. LaMarcus Aldridge also left off that list. What do you think right now with the way NBA.com has their MVP ladder?
Well, of course, I think we already kind of mentioned the first 2 with Curry and Harden. I'm taking Jeff Teague off that list. He definitely deserved to be an All-Star this year, and I was happy he got on. But if you're going to give him the MVP, then it must be like the players of the month. The whole team gets it, because they're more of a team atmosphere. Lillard at 3, I love Damian Lillard. I kind of feel like that's high, especially without having LaMarcus on the list. I feel like he definitely deserves it because LaMarcus carries them a lot, if not most of the nights. Lillard carries them a lot in the fourth quarter, but the one who sets the pace is LaMarcus. So I can say right now, possibly LeBron. They won 11 straight games, so you have to give them credit somewhere. And I'm definitely not putting Kyrie on that list, despite the great game he had. So they could probably share 3, Lillard and LeBron. LaMarcus has to be on that list somewhere. I would probably just take Teague off and everybody moves up one. So Gasol moves up. Westbrook probably would stay at the same place. I believe he deserves consideration, but with them not even making the playoffs, you're not going to get too much.
Yeah.
So I would probably, put LaMarcus maybe around 6. Gasol is above LaMarcus to me. John Wall, probably it's probably Gasol, then LaMarcus, then John Wall. Okay. I believe John Wall deserves some credit too. John Wall to me we know Curry has been the best point guard this year, but John Wall has been the best pure point guard.
Yeah.
He's leading the league in assists. I feel like he's also played better than Chris Paul. Chris Paul has not really, he's been consistent, but eventually you have to elevate your game, and I feel like he's just been the same guy for many years now. John Wall has definitely shown me something this year. I love the way he's been playing. 2
in the playoffs is really where this escalation for John Wall's career has come from. Last year's how great he played in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think just having that experience, and of course, playing with Team USA over the summer, everybody having a chance with that camp, even Lillard playing there, and I know they both got cut early, and they both felt like they deserved to be on the team, but they had a lot of great guards on it. Even Klay Thompson. That's why I feel like Klay has got so much better this year. He was on that team. Team USA, we've seen it before, but Carmelo, guys in the past, it really, helps elevate your game. I guess being around other great players in the summer and being around a coaching staff with Coach K and other, highly respected coaches, it really just improves your game. So, and that's another thing. We talked about how great the playoffs are going to be. When you look at MVPs, people like Steph Curry, they like James Harden, but nobody really had them as being MVP candidates when the season started. So it's interesting. It's like the NBA is new. Everything is new to us. We haven't seen anything like this, and like you said, unpredictability is the best thing in sports. So I mean, it's just a great thing to see that we don't really know what's coming next.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's been pretty interesting to watch this year. This is maybe the best NBA season I could remember for a while now, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm obviously going to pull for my boy LeBron to take home the MVP. I hope he can keep up the play that he's had. I know he just made a statement today that he'll do anything and everything for the Cavs to win, and that includes coming off the bench. I think if he came off the bench, that might help them lose, maybe.
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't subscribe to that one.
We'll get into some more NBA talk, plenty more coming up on the other side of this break, including our predictions for how the rest of the season is going to turn out. We'll get a quick, still very early, look at some playoff predictions, as well as our thoughts heading into All-Star Weekend. All that and more right here on C4 Sports on 88.3 The Dog.
To you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog. My name is Matt Langman, along with Darius Hawkins. We are C4 Sports. Tonight we're C2, as we kind of been left out to dry a little bit by our partners. It is the first show, though, of the semester, so we'll have the entire crew coming up later in the semester. We're missing Darius is right here to my right. We're missing Ryan and Adam, who make up the rest of C4 Sports. So you're only getting about half effort tonight. Well, I don't want to say half effort, but maybe just half capacity with just me and the Hawk right here in the studio. We're live from Salee 326, still talking NBA. We'll go ahead and take a quick look at the NBA playoff picture and get a couple predictions from Mr. Darius and myself on what we expect for the rest of the NBA season. If the season concluded today, it would be Atlanta as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, Toronto at 2, Washington 3, my boy LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers at 4, as well as my team, the Chicago Bulls, at number 5. Milwaukee, surprisingly a little bit, still at 6. Charlotte has moved up to 7, and Miami holds that number 8 seed with Brooklyn and Detroit right behind them. Turning our attention to the Western Conference, Golden State is the number 1 seed. Right behind them is Memphis. 3 is James Harden and the Houston Rockets. 4, Portland. 5, LA Clippers. 6 is the Mavericks, 7 San Antonio Spurs, and that 8 seed is Phoenix, which of course is going to be honestly the most interesting 8 seed that we'll ever see, with New Orleans and Oklahoma City competing for that final spot in the Western Conference. Darius, we'll go ahead and start it off with you. What would you expect from the playoffs if they were kind of to end today, and what do you see actually happening by the time the end of May and June starts to roll around?
Well, the real interesting thing is if it ended today, how Chicago and Cleveland would be the first round matchup. And obviously, with the way things are going right now, Cleveland will be winning that. Like I said, I really don't like how the Bulls have been playing. And if you're optimistic, you would say, okay, well, the standards aren't going to end this way. But you can't really be too sure about that. I mean, I don't necessarily see a major win streak coming from the Bulls. I mean, I know they still have to get Mike Dunleavy back. And they said they might hold him out to after All-Star break. I don't necessarily know what's going on with Doug McDermott. But even if he plays, I'm not expecting him to make too much of a big impact. But right now, I don't see Atlanta falling off hard, or Toronto. Maybe the Wizards might lose a few games here and there, and eventually Cleveland's win streak is going to end at some point. But Chicago has lost 3 in a row. Milwaukee has won 5 in a row, so it could be a chance that Milwaukee even passes Chicago up.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, nobody coming into the season, even with a healthy LeBron James in Cleveland, would say that the Bulls would be a bottom 4 seed. Yeah. Nobody would say that, and it's just surprising because even with Derrick Rose out the last 2 to 3 years, they've never been a bottom 4 seed. So this is the most healthy that they've been in a while, and they're not playing well, and that's really just, I know it's throwing everybody off. I don't really know what's going on with them, but they need to make some changes. As far as in the West, right now, I still got to go with Memphis, but I think it could be. It would be actually kind of crazy. I actually think Portland is going to end up getting the top 3 seed. Right now they're a game behind Houston. Houston has the 3rd seed. I think Portland will end up rising up, and Houston probably will end around 4. I don't really see Golden State or Memphis falling from where they're at. They fell a little bit earlier in this season, and Portland was 2 at one point. I don't really see that lasting too much longer. So I'll probably say that Portland is going to end up with 3, and them and Memphis is probably going to end up being the conference finals to me.
Okay.
Portland and Memphis, and I really want to pick Portland to win. If it was a perfect world, it would be a Portland Wizards final. That's what I would want to see. Portland versus the Wizards. Now that's not really going to happen, but I mean, a man can dream, can he? I mean, the Cowboys went 12-4, so I mean, anything is possible at this point.
Anything really is possible. Yeah. And the Seahawks managed to lose the Super Bowl with the ball on the 1-yard line with only a couple seconds left.
Well, we gotta bring that back.
You are right. Anything.
We don't have to go through that.
Anything is very possible, Darius. You are very right.
We didn't have to say that. The fans are not cheering for that moment.
Yeah, they are.
They're
my
upset.
fans are. My fans are.
They're upset.
No, they're not.
Your fans are upset.
No, that's not true. But luckily, what is true is we have a third member of C4 Sports right here in the studio. Mr. Adam Feiner himself has joined us fresh from the baseball field, I'm expecting, or at least practice.
The weight room.
Okay, the weight room. So hitting the weights today. The baseball season's right around the corner.
It is. We've got our first game on February 19th down in Tennessee.
Solid. We're all very excited for that one. We wish you guys the best of luck, but right now we got some NBA talk just to kind of throw you right into the fire, Adam.
That's fine.
What are your thoughts? We're taking an early look at the playoffs, kind of. What do you think is going to happen? Darius was just talking about how disappointing the Bulls have been. It looks like they have Derrick Rose back, and for the first time really ever in the Derrick Rose era, they're going to be a bottom 4 seed in the playoffs.
Right, and that's a little surprising considering how weak the Eastern Conference was expected to be. Yeah. Of course, Atlanta's surprised everybody. I mean, we knew they were going to probably make the playoffs in the East and probably be a 6 seed and up.
Yeah.
To rattle off, 19 straight now?
Yeah.
Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
Also, we expected Washington to be good, but the Bulls are slacking a little bit, and I think you added a bunch of new pieces in there. You got Aaron Brooks in there now. You got rid of Augustine, who played good minutes for you. You brought in Pau Gasol. You're getting Rose back, which is kind of like a free agent.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of continuity issues, I think, with the Bulls.
Do you think Tom Thibodeau's job is at all in trouble if the season continues to go like this? We're looking towards next season now, or possibly this offseason. But do you think he's going to start feeling his seat get a little bit warmer?
I think he almost should, because you look at the Eastern Conference and you think, who's there? Who should be there? Should be about Washington, Atlanta, Cleveland. Chicago should easily be up there.
Yeah.
I mean, if they do not get a top 4 seed at least, Thibodeau's going to feel some heat, and especially if they don't win a playoff series, he should feel some heat, I believe. I think there's way too much talent on that team to underachieve like they have.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, especially to hear this talk about Tom Thibodeau, who's been a guy who's been just praised during his entire time in Chicago, especially handling the situations that have arisen with Derrick Rose and all the injuries, and how they've still been such a good team without their star player. Maybe he's used to coaching without Derrick, and now it's a little bit different for him that Rose has come back.
Yeah, I don't think his job is in jeopardy from a performance aspect, but more of a personality aspect. I've seen once again that him and Gar Forman are having issues, and some executives around the league have said that they won't be surprised if he just steps down after the year anyway.
Okay.
So the whole Bulls thing, we talked about Oklahoma City imploding earlier. The Bulls' title window, I said before the year, their window is this year, and this year alone, because Cleveland is going to get better with time, with LeBron being there. Well, they're not doing a good job with this window. It might be done already. The window might have closed. Who knows? That 2011 Conference Finals year might have been the best that we're going to see from Derrick Rose and the Bulls. Because right now, everybody expecting them to be better. They don't have a good relationship from coach to GM. The players are clearly not responding to Thibodeau. We know he's a defensive mastermind, and they're not playing defense well. So, I don't know. Maybe the whole relationship has gotten tired. I mean, who knows what's coming next?
Are you a little, surprised at the implosion of the Bulls? Do you think this is kind of, at least in Derrick Rose's sense, a Grant Hill type of thing, the coulda, woulda, shoulda if injuries didn't happen, how Hill was supposed to be the next MJ, but he showed promises early in his career, but then injuries kind of derailed him, that type of thing? Do you think it's that type of situation?
I don't think it's on that level, because Rose's numbers aren't great, but they're still good numbers. Yeah. So I think with time and, within years, 1 to 2 years, I think he'll be back to putting up all-star starter type numbers.
Okay.
I think one thing with him is he has to get more comfortable in trying to figure out who he is.
Okay.
He's not going to be shooting. I doubt he's going to be shooting as many threes next year as he will this year.
Okay.
And with the offseason, he definitely needs to get his handle better. I feel like he cannot dribble a basketball at all. But
Really?
I think, I don't like his ball handling at all. His handle is horrible. And the way I can identify so easily is because I don't think I can dribble. And I know how it is when you can't dribble, the aspects you do. Anytime you watch Derrick Rose go behind his back, he always has to look down to find where the ball's at because it's never with him. He never knows where the ball is going. His handle is just horrible right now. But I attribute that more so to being, he spent so much time trying to recover from injuries than he has working on ball handling,
Yeah.
which, I mean, of course, that's probably what he should be doing. So I think as far as individually, he'll be fine. But as far as a team, specifically this team, and I mean the roster, not necessarily the Bulls organization, I think that it might be kind of over. I mean, we know Gasol is up in age. He's had a good year. Jimmy Butler, I think he's still trying to find his place. He had a great start to the year. He's kind of fell off a little bit. And then it's kind of like, how is he supposed to play with Rose? Because with Rose is in, they don't give Jimmy Butler the ball in clutch situations. I remember that overtime they had, I believe, against Phoenix. No, was it Phoenix? It was an overtime against the double overtime game they played.
Golden State.
Was it Golden State?
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
the
they
double
beat
overtime.
them.
It was another.
Yeah,
They played a
it was.
double overtime that they lost to somebody though. It was double overtime.
Maybe Dallas. Was it Dallas?
It might have been.
It was Dallas.
It might have been. It was somebody within the last 2 weeks, and I just remember they didn't give Jimmy Butler. He only shot, I believe, 2 times in overtime, and he played the first 4 quarters. He was the best player in the game, and I think Derrick Rose is still trying to say, I'm the leader, I'm the guy for this team, but his performance isn't necessarily matching that.
Yeah.
So they all need to figure out, what's going on. I keep hearing Bulls fans saying, when it's playoff time, they're going to flick the switch and they're going to be on. That's not how it works.
I don't think they have the experience. To do
Exactly, and that's why I say that the Celtics did it after they won the title.
Yep.
The Spurs have been doing it because they've been winning titles. The Bulls have no title. Well, the Heat did it because they won titles. The Bulls have no titles. They don't have any banners hanging from this team, so they can't do
one
that.
deep playoff run with Derrick Rose.
Exactly. So they don't have a switch that they can flip. They really need to, get in sync right now and start getting things in order.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I want to go back on Tibbs a little bit. You saw the relationship breakdown in Golden State last year where a great coach, I believe, in Mark Jackson, he got the boot. Because basically ownership, he had a falling out with them.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that maybe going forward. It could be a Golden State situation. And also, there's not much else to say really about the Bulls. I mean, they've got to turn it around.
Okay.
The title window is closing.
Yeah.
And I say you give this team one more good year after this. Because Rose is coming back healthy. You got to decide what to do with Jimmy Butler. Are you going to give him max contract money like he's going to demand? Or is somebody going to have to take a pay cut?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's kind of why I say this is a type of Grant Hill situation. Maybe not just for Derrick Rose, but you look at the team because obviously their championship window has kind of been ruined a little bit by the injury to Derrick Rose. So I think that's why, as a Bulls fan myself, you're going to look back at 2010 through 2015 as coulda, woulda, shoulda, if Derrick Rose was able to stay healthy. I mean, that's kind of hard to swallow, and I don't like dealing in, what if, blah, 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 but I mean, those could have been some great playoff battles. I know they met twice, but what was it, 2013, it didn't really count. There was no Derrick Rose, and once again, despite a shocking, I still don't know how the Bulls won one game. They won that game one. I think, what was it, Nate Robinson had something like 40 points in that first game. Really, other than that little flash in the pan, and the fact, I think, too, it's so hard to truly sweep a team in the playoffs. It's really hard to win 4 in a row, or at least 4 out of 4. The Heat did sweep them twice, and we could have seen some great playoff series. And even the 2011 Conference Finals, that was a great series, despite the Heat winning in 5. All those games went right down to the wire. It ended up being, I know LeBron made a ton of huge shots over Luol Deng in the last couple minutes of all those games to win the Heat that series, but it's kind of a little bit of a missed opportunity for the Bulls, and as a basketball fan, to see some great playoff series between those teams, as well as just seeing the Bulls make some deep playoff runs. So that's kind of why, for me, I almost look at it as a Grant Hill type situation for the Bulls. But Adam, I want to get your opinion on what your thoughts are as the standings stand right now heading into the playoffs. Like, what do you think would happen if the playoffs started today, and what do you think is going to happen by the time the end of May actually does roll around?
I'm gonna start in the West because that is so loaded in there. Golden State's been great.
Yeah.
They had that long win streak. I think the surprise team that not a lot of people are talking about, but has a great 5, is Dallas.
Okay.
Going forward, and I undervalued them going in, but I look at their 5 and it's just solid. 1 through 5. You got Ellis, you got Rondo now, you got Parsons, Dirk, Chandler. It's great. I think it's probably the best 5 in the West.
Okay.
You can stack that up against LA or even Golden State. Don't count out Memphis, because Memphis is such a hard place to play. If they get a first round, a top 4 seed, I would say them. I would have to say Dallas.
Okay.
I'm gonna go sleeper right there. I'm gonna say Dallas and San Antonio.
Okay.
In the conference finals, and then out east, see everybody had Cleveland and Chicago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna stick by it for now.
Okay.
It's hard to win it in Atlanta, especially with the way they're playing. It's hard to even say Cleveland and Chicago right now. But I'm gonna stay by that going forward.
Okay. All right, Darius, what do you have for the 2 conference finals right now? What do you think we're gonna see by the time that matchup in June comes around?
Like I said, in the West, Memphis and Portland. In the East, man, it's hard to pick against Atlanta. It's hard to pick Atlanta to get there, but I just feel like somehow that's going to fall apart. I don't know why. I really want to pick the Wizards. I just don't know, how they're going to be able to do it, because it's all about matchups really in the East. Atlanta has been able to seemingly beat everybody. But I think if you look at right now, you have to pick Cleveland just because of the star power. We know stars usually at least do something in the playoffs. So you have to look at Cleveland and get into a conference finals. And I'll probably go with Atlanta right now today.
Okay.
So I'll probably go Cleveland and Atlanta. And who knows how that series will turn out, because I don't really know what to make out of Atlanta. It's not so much that they're having a great regular season. It's that with this team, we haven't really seen them do too much in the playoffs. So it's kind of like we don't know what to expect from them. So I just think it's interesting to see how they turn out.
Yeah, for me, I think if we're looking at the East, I agree. I think Atlanta is still an anomaly to me. Like you said, Darius, we've seen nothing from this squad in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It could be a flash in the pan. I don't think they're a team that's built for the playoffs either. They don't seem to have that guy, that LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, that type of guy that, in the playoffs you need somebody who's going to just go ISO and get you a bucket.
Exactly.
We saw that from Kawhi Leonard for the Spurs. He was that guy in the playoffs for them, as well as, they have Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, who always just seems to be ageless and pull something out of his behind with some of those post moves. LeBron James did it for the Heat, as well as he had Bosh and Dwayne Wade still helping him out, at least before last year. Kobe Bryant back in the day, Shaquille O'Neal. I don't see that for Atlanta, that type of player. So that's why it's hard to choose. I have Cleveland in there right now because, they have LeBron James, and it looks like they're starting to get their stuff together right now, and they're also not in the Western Conference. So that's why I have Cleveland as one of the final 2. And the other spot is up for grabs. Honestly, I want to say Washington because I like the team they have. I really like what I saw from them in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen a team recently use that experience and fuel them the way the Wizards have from that good run they had last year. But they haven't played too well, at least quite as well as I thought they were going to be. They have lost 4 in a row, it looks like right now. So I think it's Atlanta or Washington. I guess right now I'll choose Atlanta, just going off the recent success they have. It's hard to ignore that win streak. So I'd say Cleveland and Atlanta in the Eastern Conference. In the West, I have Memphis and San Antonio, just because the Spurs just always, they don't go away in the playoffs, especially the past couple years. I know they're old. They're only the 7th seed right now. When it comes to playoff time, until they lose, until I see them take that plunge, I'm picking the Spurs every year in the playoffs. So that's why I have the Spurs and Memphis. Me and Darius talked about this earlier, Adam. When it comes to Golden State and Memphis, we'll take that Memphis matchup every day because the game slows down in the playoffs, and we think Memphis is a better team in that half-court setting that you'll see in the playoffs.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Golden State wants to push it, shoot within 10 seconds of the 24 starting.
Yeah.
Playoff basketball, I don't care who you are. I don't care if 2 fast break teams are going up against each other.
Yeah.
The pace always slows down for some reason in the playoffs. And when you have Gasol and Randolph down there, I don't think Golden State really stands a chance down low.
Yeah.
In guarding those 2. They could shut down one, but then the other could go off.
Yeah. So what do you guys think off those matchups? Who do you think will win the champion, if you can even say that at this point?
Man, you
How
want to put
about
us
if-
all the way to the test right now.
Dude, that's
huh?
how I do it. You go big or you go home. I mean, that's kind of the way you look at it.
I've been telling everybody Memphis. I just feel
Okay.
like Memphis is the best team in the NBA. I got to go with Memphis. Which I just want to put a side note. That's not going to happen. I just know it is not going to work out that way for some reason, but I just have to say that. Memphis.
San Antonio until they get beat. I'm
Okay,
just gonna
that's
go
kind of
easy
how
way
I'm
out.
leaning. That's kind of how I'm leaning. I would want to say San Antonio. I think it's going to be San Antonio, Cleveland in the finals, so at least LeBron gets a chance at revenge. I'll probably pick San Antonio, honestly, just because, like you said, Adam, and like I said earlier, till they fall off, till they do lose, especially how good they've been the last couple of years, especially last year, too. I'll take San Antonio. I kind of want to say Cleveland because this is a younger, more energetic team, but until they get that defense figured out and Kevin Love truly involved in the offense, I'm going to have to go San Antonio over Cleveland at this point, which will heartbreak me once again. But I don't know. It's just, I think you kind of said it perfectly. Until they lose, I think you got to pick the Spurs. So final thoughts on what we've seen from the NBA, as this is once again our first show of the semester. At least for the NBA. Final thoughts for the basketball.
Gosh, I would say it's interesting. A couple of players to look at down the stretch. I would say key players. LaMarcus Aldridge was supposed to miss 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
He's back playing now. That helps my fantasy team. That also helps Portland. Huge addition.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just go ahead and piggyback on Adam with Portland because we know Damian Lillard is my boy. I just say, hopefully they just, shock everybody. Hopefully Damian Lillard uses the All-Star snub to fuel him as he's, used all type of criticism and doubt to fuel him so far just to get where he's at. And hopefully they rise back in the standings to get back to that number 2 seed, compete for the number 1.
And for me, I'm going to stick with my 2 teams. The Bulls really have to get their stuff together right now. Just the most disappointing year I've seen from them since I've kind of been a Bulls fan. I had big hopes for them. I thought that they could have made the NBA Finals. I thought eventually they would lose to the Cavs because they just can't beat LeBron in the playoffs. But still, I did not expect this from them. I thought it'd be a 1 or a 2 seed, probably a 1. And as they sit right now, they are 5 and they're falling fast. And for my other team, well, I guess my other player, which is LeBron, don't sleep on him, people. Do not sleep on LeBron. I feel like Darius and I talked about this earlier. People are sleeping on LeBron right now. Well, I guess please keep sleeping on him because that's going to play into his favor. So there you go. You know what, media? Everybody just keep sleeping on my boy. He'll show you what's up in the playoffs. So that's going to do it for us on C4 Sports, at least basketball talk. We got about 10 minutes left on the other end of this break. We're going to get some quick hockey in because, that's been my fix. That's been 95% of the sports I've watched this year has been the NHL. So we'll get a quick hockey talk. A big week coming up for our team, Adam, as well as most people here, the Chicago Blackhawks. It's do or die time right now. So all that and more coming up for the final 10 minutes of C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog. All right.
Hey,
Finally almost
is that
done.
faucet running?
We made
No,
it.
We
That's
did.
We made
We did it.
That's a river rushing through the forest.
It is.
Where's Ryan?
Yeah.
I had
Forest
no
fires
idea.
provide over
No
100
idea.
million people with clean
Didn't
water.
hear from him. I honestly forgot until he tagged me in that Facebook post. That's how that show.
What? I
Yeah.
can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up
I
the air.
was gonna go to the
How
St.
do
Louis game
trees clean the air?
at Scott Trade Center, but I'm
Oh,
actually
really?
leaving for Chicago
And trout.
tomorrow morning for
That's
NBS.
clean air for
We're
us.
going to tour all the news
Oh.
stations in the city.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
So I would have been going to that game
But the forest is
Uh,
more than give us clean air.
if I didn't have to go to
Give us
Chicago.
shade for hot days, birds
Dude, I'm
to
worried
listen
right
to,
now. We
and
are.
trees
This is
to
the
climb.
that last game was the worst effort I've seen them
awesome.
give all
I
season.
didn't
That
know
was
how cool
embarrassing.
forest could be.
Well, Minnesota's
Hey, this is
fast,
Forest
but it's
Noise.
just
Still, it doesn't matter.
the
Like,
effort was
yeah.
brutal.
They just lose every loose puck, and they're just stuck along the boards the entire time. And we've been playing so well up until that point. There's no reason for it. There is literally no reason for that.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Do they play
have you
tonight
practiced the most popular
or
bird songs
tomorrow?
for the year?
Of course.
They play tomorrow.
Okay.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River. Did
Oh, that's gonna be interesting. That'll be. We're 1-4 against them. I think. Whatever. We're a playoff team. That's why I'm not panicking yet. I'm like right before panic level. 'Cause we're still a 4 seed.
You know
Yeah.
the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids
But,
at night.
Yeah, they can do better. They can do a lot better.
One St. Louis.
And Crawford's been. Yeah, St. Louis. I don't know. I just don't think St. Louis is a playoff team.
It's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple
I know they're
I
playing
know,
well
love
right
it.
now.
Turtle.
Yeah.
So
Turtle.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be a big matchup is when we play them. I can't stand the Blues. I hate them so much. All their fans are just Cardinals fans who happen to watch hockey occasionally.
Just for you. Visit a forest near you today to learn more about cool things to do in the forest.
Like, I've yet to meet a Blues fan. Like, I'm sure they're out there, but I've yet to meet a Blues fan who truly knows hockey. Like, truly can talk hockey with me. I did not want this one. And welcome back to C4 Sports. Right now in the final 9 minutes, we're going to be talking some hockey. Darius, I know you know a lot about the game that is played on ice, so feel free to jump in whenever you want. But Adam, right now as it stands for the NHL, the teams that would be in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. Still, I didn't think they were going to keep that up all. I thought they were a flash in the pan to start the season. Montreal, who is my pick to win the East, they have righted the ship after some early struggles. They're at second with 67 points. Tied with them is Detroit at 67. Four, it's Pittsburgh with 66. The Islanders, who have fallen off a little bit. My MVP candidate was John Tavares. He's not going to win it, it looks like, but still a great season from them. They were my team to watch in the East. They're 65. 6 is the Rangers, defending Eastern Conference champs at 64. 7 is the Capitals, who have finally decided to turn it around this year. Ovechkin is an MVP candidate once again at 62 points. At least he's not going to be a minus 50 again, I believe it was. And 8 is the Boston Bruins at 8 at 61. I don't know how that is possible with their team. They're still really, really struggling. Most people had them coming out of the East. In the West, we have Nashville. I didn't think they were even going to make the playoffs. They're number 1 at 72. Tied with them is Anaheim at 72. 3 is the St. Louis Blues at 74. Is our team right there, my religion, the Chicago Blackhawks at 64. 5 is the Calgary Flames, another team flash in the pan. They're keeping it up right now at 61. 6 is San Jose, 61 as well. 7 is Winnipeg at 61. And 8 is Vancouver, another surprise team at 59. So what are you taking away? Because we got a lot of teams in here that are kind of surprising to be in the playoff picture right now.
I agree, and teams that are actually lower than we expected to be. Boston.
LA's not in the playoffs, the reigning champ.
Right. And actually, see, I wouldn't count those teams out, is the thing. Because Boston has a great goaltender. And if you can get a hot goalie going through the playoffs, you can really ride that. I mean, New York found that out last year with Lundqvist. Rask could get on a big streak and carry the Bruins all the way from an 8 all the way through. And that's why I don't count out the Blackhawks. Because the year they won the Cup, the years, actually, they've won the Cup, Crawford's been great.
Yeah.
So, I don't count any of the perennial powers out.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why I tend to favor them more than these upstart teams like Calgary, Nashville.
Yeah. That's why a lot of teams, especially with the struggles the Hawks have had, kind of just the past week and a half, people are worried. I'm like, 1, it's still February, and 2, the Blackhawks are a team that's built for the playoffs. I know there's the struggle here is primarily Hawks fans, but there are a couple Blues fans, one of which is our partner who is not here today, so I'm a little upset about that. I would like to hear his opinion on this as a Blues fan, but the Hawks are a team that's built for the playoffs. They have the depth, they have the experience, they have the goaltending. The Blues, I think, are a team that, they'll play real well in the regular season, and I actually had them as my backup pick to come out of the West. That was my number 2 pick with St. Louis at the start of the season, but I don't think they're a playoff team. Not only do they not really have the experience, they have a history of choking in the playoffs, blowing 2-0 leads in the series. They just don't have that experience. None of their big-time players are kind of those kind of big-time, prime-time playoff performance. Think Patrick Kane, Taves, guys like that. And they don't have the depth, especially down the middle, to win in the playoffs, which is what has been proven that you need, whether it's the Hawks, Kings, Bruins. And the goaltending is still suspect. Brian Elliott has played real well when he's healthy, but can he keep it up? We'll see. And he has really no playoff experience as well. He's been a guy who's been a revolving door back there. He's constantly had his starting position taken. This is really his first year where he's the solid number 1 goalie for St. Louis. They had to play Martin Brodeur for a while until he finally had to retire with Jake Allen coming back. So that's kind of an interesting. And 2, a team that really not many people are talking about is the team that's sitting atop the Eastern Conference is the Tampa Bay Lightning. It hasn't even been all Stamkos. Normally when you talk Tampa Bay, especially since they got rid of St. Louis last year, it's been Steven Stamkos scoring 50, almost 60 goals a season. That has not been the case. It's been a real team effort. It's been a great defensive effort as well. Ben Bishop, their goaltender, could be a Vezina Trophy at the candidate at the end of the year.
I agree, and it's actually refreshing to see. I think it's good for the NHL's effort. Not so good for traditional hockey fans. You know, the power, teams, Chicago,
Yeah.
Boston, even up in Canada, but hockey in Florida actually doing well. I mean, Tampa Bay won a Stanley Cup in the 2000 decade.
Yep.
But, people like to forget that, actually.
Yeah.
It's normally a northern-dominated sport, and for good reason, but I guess they're kind of representing all of the South because Phoenix has dropped off.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, Arizona.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, Arizona. They've dropped off, and Florida does nothing. Carolina's just
They're
the
bad.
laughing
They're
stock
bad.
in the league. So it's refreshing to see a Southern team actually do well.
I think something I want to ask you about, too, which has been interesting, especially over winter break, is when a lot of this drama has been happening, has been kind of the New York Yankees almost of hockey. Well, maybe that might be the Canadiens, but how about right behind them is the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that just, it's been a circus up just north of Detroit. They should be a playoff team. They're not right now. Phil Kessel apparently is uncoachable. They fire their coach. The sweaters constantly being thrown on the ice in disrespect by their own fans, which has got the team upset where they don't salute the fans after the game. What do you think is going to happen in Toronto? This is a talented team that should be in the playoffs. I thought they were going to make it after missing it last year. I thought they would get their stuff together. I'm a big Phil Kessel fan. My favorite Canadian team is the Maple Leafs. So what do you think needs to happen in Toronto? They do have their two best players are Americans in Kessel and Van Riemsdyk.
Right, I agree. And you actually have a good foundation with those two. Van Riemsdyk's actually, I'm not sure of Kessel's age, but Van Riemsdyk's a nice young player to actually build around for the future. But
yeah,
man,
they're well out of a playoff spot.
There are so many problems where I don't even know where to start. There needs to be, first off, relations have to be healed.
Yeah.
Fans and team, because eventually who pays the salary? Who puts, the players are supposed to put butts in the seats, but their performance hasn't indicated anything there. And the fans, they're supposed to be one of the greatest fan bases.
Yeah.
The
Hockey News picked them as 1. They had Montreal 2 and Chicago 3.
I agree. And, it's almost sad.
Yeah.
It's almost sad because part of me as, a quasi NHL fan is to see a Canadian team really make a run at it. That's why I'm enjoying Montreal's run right now.
Yeah.
And I think Toronto would be good for the NHL.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For tradition-wise.
Yeah, as we're in the final minute, this will be our final talking point of the day. Who is your NHL MVP right now?
Oof.
Who takes home that Hart Trophy?
Oh, man. Can I be a homer and pick Patty Kane?
I was going to say the same thing. For me, that's my MVP. 3rd right now in the points race, and he is just taking his play to another level. So, from both of us, we have Patrick Kane. I know you could throw Sidney Crosby, obviously, in that conversation. Jakub Voracek, the NHL's leading scorer, is still up there, as well as Pekka Rinne, who will probably win the Vezina. Carey Price has had a heck of a season as well. Don't forget about Shea Weber. I always like to throw some defensemen in there as well. But, I think I got to go Patty Kane, too. The guy is just, tearing it up. We need him to start scoring. We've been shut out 2 straight games, though. So if anybody's going to break that streak for the Hawks, it's going to be Patrick Kane. So I think that's going to be it from C4 Sports, as we're just about out of time. Our final farewells for the first show of the season. I'm Matt Langman. Tweet at me at LmanMatt93.
I'm Darius Hawkins. Y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Hawk_13.
And I'm Adam Feiner. You can find me on Twitter at NobodyFeiner.
So that's it for C4 Sports. There's a lot more coming up every Thursday right here on 88.3 The Dog. Everybody have a great night.